Actually, yes?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. Hello, folks. Welcome back to another season of On Location in Edmonton. I would say, as always, I am Gabby, and behind the camera is Rekha. However, this time... he's a bit preemptive with it. This time, I'm joined by Harvey. We've decided for the season to fire Rekha. No, I'm just kidding. Rekha couldn't make it this season before Teles gets too upset with me here. But my good time friend, longtime colleague, Harvey has decided to join us.
Yeah.
So you're in for On Location with technically Gabby and Harvey, but it'll most likely be On Location Edmonton with us too. So my name is Gabby, and beside me, for our premiere episode, I'm excited to introduce this individual. He is a multidisciplinary artist. Everything you can imagine, from mural art to drawing to b-boying to DJing. I'm probably missing a whole lot more in there, but we'll find out more in the interview. I'm joined by Brandon Cha, aka Busyrawk.
Hey, thank you. Yes, peace. My name is Busyrawk. I go by name Brandon as well. Like Gabby said, multidisciplinary artist. Everything's under umbrella of hip hop is which my background is. I'm South Korean, and I'm currently based here in Edmonton in Amiskuchi, Waskaigan. So
nice, yeah. And nailed it too. Usually I struggle with pronouncing it. I'm like, I really hope I did it.
No, that's good, man. I know I have lots of names too, so it's like
It's and I wanted to ask you. Speaking of lots of names, how did the name Busyrawk kind of come to be?
No, that's a great question. For me to share where the name Busyrawk comes from gives a little light about my hip hop side of things that I feel like often I don't get a lot of chances to share that side.
Mm-hmm.
So busy is I got it in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So my high school friends, so I started dancing since high school, and that was the first craft that I started with, b-boying, and my friends would always be like, yo, you're always busy. Like I was just doing, I was doing a lot of things, and and you know what, that kind of stuck through with me without even realizing that I always just wanted to try different things. I don't know, I just never had like a fear to try something I haven't tried before. So back then I was dancing. I was I think I was there's something called like Model United Nations.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was involved in part of that.
Okay.
I'm just sharing, just to show you, like I tried like all sorts of different things. I even tried tennis. I tried volleyball. I was even part of the contemporary dance group in our high school, and it just I always tried basically everything that's out there. So my friends kept like saying, oh, you're always busy, man, busy, and then it kind of came as like, oh yeah, that's a cool nickname, and then I became busy, and then the rock part is in hip hop, there's a term called like rocking, so there's different elements in the hip hop culture. Yeah. So there's rocking the dance floor, rocking the wall, you're rocking the turntables. It's like I'm rocking is the verb behind it. So by saying like busy rock is I'm busy rocking. So it's like a little suffix that people add to the names.
Okay.
So it's not just me that has the rock at the end. Like there's lots of other hip hop, namely b-boys, that have that rock at the end. So that's where that word comes from, rocking. So so that's the name, Busyrawk. Yeah.
That's actually pretty sweet. I was trying to like, in my mind I was like, I feel like the busy part I can kind of follow through. The rock part I was like, I wonder.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, like, how did you what was your first kind of experience getting into the world of dance? 'Cause I imagine that like many folks like they're not immediately like b-boying, right? Was there like some art form where like you maybe took a dance class and then you're like nah, and then you're like but I like this, or did you know right from the jump this is what I want to do?
Yeah, you know what? Like, I got right into falling in love with a form of art right off the get go. Like as soon as I saw, so the way I came across breaking was through LimeWire. So back
Oh
in the days,
wow!
yeah. So
for the folks that don't know, LimeWire was a completely very legitimate music service. No, it wasn't. But we won't use the term here because keep it rated G. But okay, that's fair. Yeah. It was used to transfer and share files. Let's say that. Yeah. And most of the time, it transfers shared viruses.
Yeah. Lots of viruses.
Yeah. LimeWire.
Yeah.
And was it like music or was it?
Yeah. No, I first started downloading music, and then I think I came across like this. So they still do this event. It's called Battle of the Year, and that was one of the first like footages that I came across. Like hip hop, like for me, I came into the internet era.
Mm-hmm.
So before that, it was everybody was passing around like the VHS.
Yeah.
And that was a generation of its own. But then when I got exposed to breaking was through the internet. Battle of the Year, those footages that was passed around through LimeWire.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really wanted to do that. I just caught onto it, and first I fell in love with the physical look of dancing.
Okay.
But what happened was I fell in love with the music, which is funk. Funk. I just love the whole fact that there was a band behind the music that we were dancing to. I immediately fell in love with that, which I think people today often struggle to find what they love doing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes for me, I have to be honest, I can't really relate to that because I fell in love with dancing so much right when I was in junior high. And then with the music that I fell in love with, that's when DJing came into the picture. I started collecting records first. My mentor, Creation, he was the one who really introduced me to the world of DJing. And I remember he first took me to the record shop in Montreal when I was staying there. He was visiting at that time, so we went to I think Sonorama was the record shop.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that was my first time I went digging for records, and then I just wanted to keep physical copies of music. And later on, I was like, I wanna create the spaces where we can share this kind of music, and that's how the music came to be. I forget what your original question.
No, that's all good. No, you shared so much, and I have so much to pull off of on there. So I wanted to say, like, that's very fascinating that you, like, it's multiple facets. That like the music got you into the b-boying, got you into the DJing. I'm noticing there's a pillar there missing, and I'm wondering, did you ever try your hand at MCing? Right?
I think that's the big question that my friends do ask me. Like, so you've done, you've worked with aerosols, you've DJ, you're dancing. What about MCing? You know what? Like I've always found the verbal world to be like my weak side.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just something about the verbal side of things that I feel I can't express as well as I can with other things. And I think that's why I drew closer to dancing a lot more. It's because I could kind of communicate better with my body and the music. So yeah, I haven't thought about trying MC yet, but I think
to complete the final like
yeah,
trifecta.
yeah. You know what? But I think like I always like to challenge myself.
Yeah.
That's one thing that really keeps me going, and to try all these different things that I tried to since when I was high school, right? Is to just challenge myself and be comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's a possibility right now.
Okay.
What I'm learning a lot of things right now that I would say if MCing did come into the picture, it would be kind of in the waiting list. So one of the things I want to learn right now is animation.
Nice.
And I also appreciate concept art a lot too. So right now it's a bit of a struggle trying to maintain those studies consistently while I'm working on my mural side of things. Especially right now I'm directing the 4 Guardians of Chinatown project. So it's been really hard to squeeze those studies in as I'm preparing for the next Guardian. But yeah, I'm always like even with I was just talking about lighting with you just before we started recording. Things like that, just little things from other areas that I'm trying to pick up on that I'm currently learning, and it's too overwhelming if I added MCing. Yeah. No. So I don't want to close that door right away.
Yeah.
You know, but
it's
the door's open. But I'll say it's definitely a little bit later on the
down the totem pole. Yeah, no, I wanted to ask it because like as you know like hip hop does have its go-to kind of pillars, and it was interesting because like I feel like you and I grew up very much similar. Like hip hop for a time, it had a very hard time cementing itself as like an actual genre, and sometimes it would be called rap, and you had a very hard time getting like CDs of it, getting any forms of it, because of course there's also like parental guidance kind of stickers, and like when you were a teen you couldn't get it, and like LimeWire and all these like file sharing sites, although like not legal, were like the best form to kind of be exposed to all of that and kind of get that music. And eventually now hip hop has like, now it's a genre. Now it even has like subgenres and everything. So I want to just be like, I heard b-boying, I heard DJing, I heard like the chorus, and that last core was just something interesting. But you said that, like one line you said there is like, you always love being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about why that's, because it sounds like that's something that helps drive you into exploring different mediums. How did you find that like, hey, I want to do this, and like how do you fight, I guess, that that wall that we all create of like, what if I fail, like what if I'm not good, and all of those challenges that like you kind of tell yourself before you go into anything?
It's a great question. I'm
I
gonna
sometimes,
approach it talking about being comfortable with it, being uncomfortable. That how I got to that kind of, not philosophy, but the way of thinking. That for me it came to be by wanting to I always wanted to create like really really dope things. Is how like I wanted to create like this ideas in my mind that I wanted to try, and then to create that you have to learn a few set of skills, and because I had to learn those things, it put me in a position to feel really uncomfortable, and I wanted to learn it really badly. So for me, the realizations kind of came after I put myself into it. It wasn't like before I was, I gotta get into the mindset where I gotta get uncomfortable. But it just, the discomfort happened, and I was like, so this is what it's like to learn. All right, I guess this is a normal thing. And then after you just do that for multiple times, then you realize it's such a normal thing, and it becomes just a part of the process, and you kind of enjoy it. Yeah, and for me, the enjoyment comes from seeing myself grow. I get to see a part of me that committed, and then I showed up, and then I see the results. Yeah, so it is a dopamine really not rush.
Yeah, rush. Yeah.
Dopamine hit. I like that feeling of seeing myself progress, especially after going through a certain process. I'm feeling that especially right now with Kung Fu. So I started with Jingwu martial arts last November, so just past the 1 year mark, and I love it because I am applying everything that I learned from what I learned in the past things that I learned, and definitely it's throwing me off a little bit too. It's definitely putting me in an uncomfortable space where I haven't tried something like this before, but there's also parallels between dance and martial arts, so applying those things from what I learned before, and then I put in the time, and I see the results come out from that, and that's where I'm like, oh, okay, I really like this, and that's where I'm reminded, okay, it is very normal to be uncomfortable, very, very normal to be uncomfortable, and because the goal is that I want to grow in that area. It's only a given that you have to get uncomfortable to do that. So, for me, that's how that mentality came to be.
Okay. So
the first thing, yeah.
Yes, your belief is that for you to remotely kind of get really, I want to take the Adventure Time quote that Jake the dog makes all the time of like that sucking is the first step at getting good at anything. Yeah. And that's not to say that like, you know, be depreciative of yourself or anything like that, but it's like going in knowing that philosophy of like, I don't know anything. Yeah. And it allows you, like, because sometimes that can be like a fear of like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. I don't feel in control, and you back out. And sometimes it's nice because you're like, boy, do I have so much to learn, because I can only grow from here. Like hopefully not ungrow at zero, but like usually at zero, like you can only mess up and learn, and that's the space and that's the environment you want to be able to learn. I like that was your story about getting into Jingwu, because we both share that. I used to be formerly Jingwu. That was not my story of how I got into Jingwu. How I got into Jingwu, in case the audience would like to know the story, Harvey shaking his head no, is one day my dad and your Sifu, my Sifu Brennan, were working together. My dad is a Bruce Lee nutcase. He is just in love and seen every film. He used to like build his own nunchucks. Oh wow! Yeah, with like 2 screws, a chain, and then just like we just crazed. And I think he just loved every martial arts film, everything. So then when Sifu Brendan was like, I have a martial arts class that I teach, I'm an instructor and everything. My dad was like, this is divine. He's like, oh my gosh. So he came home to me and my brother in a state, like, you don't really see Eastern parents in this state, but giddy. And like, we were sitting there like playing video games, and he like knocked the door, opened it wide open. He's like, boys, what are you up to? And before we could answer, he's like, do you have indoor shoes? And we're like, what? And then he was like, just grab your indoor shoes and get in. And he literally threw us in the van, drove us there. And the entire time he's like, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. Oh, you're going to love this. And we're like, and I'm looking at my brother. And my brother's like, because we've never seen a parent like giddy. And he was like so excited, like cracking the biggest smile. And I told like Ryan, my brother at the time, I was like, listen, if he makes the turn to the woods, I'm going to call 911. But like, so far, And then we arrive. And it's like, you know, the old club that used to be not where the current new one is. And we're like, what is this? And then they threw us in the uniform and everything. And then the very first day, obviously, because Hungar, stances. And for a good 2 months before we learned anything, it was stances. So we originally did not like it.
Yeah. Wait, how old were you at this time?
I was, I think, 13.
Yeah, 13.
13 when and I was
that might...
yeah, and my brother is 4 years younger. And so so we were both like, like we'd finish school, and I remember this was like Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. He would just like pick us up in the van, and immediately after school we'd go to do stances, and I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we here? What are you doing to us? And he's like, you will appreciate this, you will enjoy this later. And like, it's funny because at the get-go, not that I hated the form or anything, it was just like, as a kid I was like, I don't want to be here, right? And then rather than like going into it wanting the uncomfortable, it was like, I just wasn't comfortable enough telling my very excited father, I don't want to do this. So I was like, maybe I'll wait it out for a bit. Maybe I'll see what's up. But then eventually, with how amazing everyone there was, we ended up staying for like 8 or 9 years.
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
It was like we became friends with them. We did like so many like lion dance stuff, everything, like a fantastic player of the community. So interesting that like we both share the Jingle. However, you didn't get thrown in a van. It's just like bursted through like, hey, you got indoor shoes? I'm like, yeah. He's like,
no time to explain. Get in the car.
He's like, you're gonna love this place. And like, my dad loved it because like that was all he was about. We were like, I've never seen this man giddy. And like, I want you to imagine, like, picture in your mind your parent who, like, if you have, because my dad's very like seldom the one to like laugh, but he's usually the more serious type.
Oh,
giddy.
Okay.
And the entire time he's driving, he's like, what is going on? Is this the day? So it was interesting, but fascinating. You added an extra discipline to an already expanding. How has like martial arts helped you grow, and do you find similarities of like, of course, the choreographing of like the forms and the fighting and everything? Sometimes, like, believe it or not, folks, some of the fights are not, especially when they have like, I remember when we were in, it was like the 3-sectional, these swords, like those are choreographed. They are not fighting for real. So I'm sorry if I revealed that veil. But have you found that like learning stances, forms, everything tied really well? Were you able to pick it up because of the b-boy background?
Yeah, definitely. You know what? Like, touching on your dad's story, say if I was a dad, I think I would be that great dad too, because I found that martial arts, and I think it's kind of cool that I started late in my 30s. I'm 32, by the way. I started late in my 30s, and I have a really big appreciation for it, because not only has it improved my life, but it's definitely there's a lot of things that you could learn from it. I don't know, it can sound very cheesy from the Hollywood films, like where but there is some truth to that, where in a sense where you do what you learn from martial arts, it's definitely applicable to your real life experiences, how you carry yourself, how you go through how you handle challenges, how you carry yourself when there is a certain pressure that comes up, and I think Kung Fu is really a teaching of that. So from the stances to the forms, to the sparring as well, I would say the biggest lessons is where I connect that with some of the challenges that I have as an artist. Definitely you, the discipline is the first thing, Showing up is the first step to growing in any area, This is funny. I had a coworker that would always say 80% of life
is just showing up.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy, laziest guy in the world, 80% just showing up. Like, what about working? What about this? He's like, no, he's like, really break it down. If you're not there for a job, if you're not there for a recreational thing, if you're not there for whatever, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
you have to be there. And then I was like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, whatever. And years later, I realized that many times in life, it's easy for you, like, not to go to the gym. It's easy for you to miss a class. It's easy for you to not work on your art. Like, in you not showing up for yourself, you're not achieving. Yeah. And then I took it as that. Because when he would say it, I was like, this is the laziest, like, no. I'm like, isn't life 100% showing up? Don't you have to show up for everything? What are you talking about? But it was an interesting concept of, like, and you're right with the discipline, is that, like, that's one of the key integral things I found, like, was the hardest thing. Because it's not just hard in showing up. It's not just hard in training. It's not just hard in practicing. It was especially when you, I don't know if you've competed yet, or they got you into competitions or...
There's 2 competitions, tournaments so far.
Yeah. How did you find that experience?
You know what? It felt good to be trying something new again. Like, again, I come back to that again because I've been dancing for 15 plus years, DJing for 8, painting for 6, and to try something again brand new as Kung Fu, which is only 1 year now. At the time when I went to the tournaments, it's like it was very
nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
it is.
It's like, ooh, I feel this again. I don't get me wrong, I still get nervous from time to time, even with dancing too. But in terms of like the first time going to a tournament situation, you get the butterflies.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was, it was like, we meet again, butterflies.
You're an opponent I know.
Yeah, exactly. So it was cool to feel that again. And I think that's, for me, that's what kind of keeps me wanting to continue doing the things that I do. And almost like it's one of the purposes for my life, I think. It's like to have those experiences, along with like traveling, but to have those new experiences, to feel those butterflies again, So, that's what I felt on that.
That's amazing. No, they it was very, very interesting, very similar experiences, and just announcing yourself to the judges was always a whole thing. The fear of like, gosh, I hope I don't mess up like a stance, a weapon. The one where I didn't feel as much butterflies, I'd say is sparring, because it's like I can only react to what's happening, right? Where the other ones, it's like, it's me. So if I mess up, if I just don't say my name right, if I like, sometimes like when some folks would go up to like announce themselves, their voice would crack, or they would cough. I know. And I would be like, thank God that's not me, but I so feel for you. And then in my head, I'm like drinking water, and I'm just like terrified. I'm like, that would be the worst start, because really, the other discipline is like, once you mess up, or once you feel like this isn't as good, it's fascinating how quick your brain is to like shut you down. And you have to fight to be like, I don't want to shut down. I know I messed up. I want to like, I want to see us through. I want to finish it up. I wanted to ask you, in your various disciplines, how has, like, I don't want to use the concept of failure, but how has the concept of like not hitting your targets, like kind of like almost failure, like how have you overcome that challenge of like, I didn't do this, I didn't like this. You know, because many people like, they have a sense of perfectionism, but sometimes I feel like it hits an unrealistic sense of like, you know. So how have you helped deter yourself away to be like, listen, I want to see this through, I want to finish it, here's what I learned.
So, okay, I'm really glad you brought that up. That was a big chapter of my life that I would say really helped shape to be who I am today. It helped prepare me to really healthily challenge myself into learning all these different forms and disciplines. And I was very hard on myself. Is
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
getting at. Yeah. I had a time in my life when I was. I set myself some incredibly high standards, which did help me get good.
Mm.
Largely where I am today with breaking, with painting murals and DJing right now, is because I at that time set myself with a bar that high,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I developed my discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just fearlessly learn everything that I could possibly, like, everything that I felt I needed to learn to get to where I want to be. But with that, what I didn't know was that um, I thought I didn't know how to coach myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like a very abusive coach voice that really was abusive. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, oh wow, that was like really, really abusive, because I would be like, yo, that's all you can do. Like, at that kind of level, you're gonna get nowhere. Like, and you're like, right now, you're still making these same mistakes. Like you're stupid. Like, really, really just negative
just
self-talk.
dragging you down. Yeah.
Yeah, really negative self-talk. I didn't really understand the effects of how you talk to yourself
Mm-hmm.
has into what kind of impact that makes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I figured that out. But definitely, like, you don't want to at the same time not be sugarcoat things to yourself, but you have to be gentle at the same time. So there's a way to foster that kind of, it's like cultivating rather than trying to like really rigorously set yourself into this growth path. I feel like it's more self-destructive than anything. So it went to the point where I was so abusive to myself. Things like my skill set got better, but in terms of my self-esteem and my self-worth, it was just rock bottom. I went to a really, really dark place. My mental health was just completely just
Deteriorated.
just obliterated sense of self. And yeah, I started to then talk to myself in a way where it's like, hey, it's okay, we messed up, but we can do things better. Like, we're still it's a process. Things take time. You're doing great. You see how, like, I reframed like the same situation,
Mm-hmm.
but one is a lot more positive and cultivating than the other one that was very, like, abusive. So I realized, so to answer your question, for me, I had to really love myself first. Yeah, love myself first, to be able to coach myself in a way that's healthy. So that means that imperfections are a normal thing. It'll always be there. Like, you're never really going to be perfect, and you're never really going to have the best answers and the best results. And it's being okay with that, like, not complacency, but like, you want to still grow. You want to still grow, but you want to be accepting of where you're at. Like, you acknowledging that you did the best with the resources or the time or the situation that you were given with, or the wisdom that you had at that time. So, like, just knowing, that at that time, that's all I knew. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even talking to myself that way, like, I was like, at that time I didn't know. Yeah. So instead of like accusing myself and judging myself for talking that way to myself in the past, even that too, just accepting that as just, okay, at that time, that's all I knew, and that's okay.
That's all I
Yeah. So that's just being able to say it's okay to myself was the way to address me being very harsh on myself. Like, even right now too, like, some of my murals are very high visibility. It's like, it really puts you on a test on the perfectionism, because now that it's public, like high visibility, you want to be as you want to present your best self.
Yes, of course.
So you tend to lean into the perfectionism side of things, and that's where I learned. Hey, at that time, given the situations or circumstances, the energy level, like where I was at, what I was able to work with, that's the best that I did, and I'm happy with that. I'm proud of myself for that, and so that's kind of the
just putting your
change.
best foot forward.
Yeah.
And loving the process and yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I can tell you for a fact, like I'm not perfect. I'm not I'm not I'm not perfect. So it's like and I'm always learning, and if people like have feedback, then I'm not like it doesn't trigger me, because I'm already in the state where I'm like, I can't possibly know everything. Like I'm proud of where I'm at in terms of my skill, but there's still a lot of room to grow, is what I always know, and I think that's where I'm at right now, and that was where I grew up from. The really dark time was very self-destructive. Like like it was a self-destruction that was leading me into having suicidal thoughts. Like that's how bad it was.
Gosh.
Yeah, that's how bad it was. And I'm sharing this because it's I think when people can relate, it can resonate better with people that the listeners too. I'm not saying everybody goes through the path that I went through, but there's some parallels that people can draw from, and that negative self-talk is really it's not the healthiest way to grow, and there's a way to really like foster that
environment, like to be better yourself, be kind to yourself.
And
just it like I agree with you. Thank you for sharing, because that's like I'm always thankful when people can share that, because I feel like too many times, especially like, and we know the statistic for men, is it's not shared, not talked about as often. But it does help to share, because so many times people are blown away by when they see like successful artists, and then they consider like, well, how can they be, because they have all these successes? How can they be? And they don't imagine that they could be going through something that dark and deep. But they're so successful, but they're so good, but they're so like, and they have these, but so almost in a sense of like, but like you could be as successful as you want to be and as good as you are, but if internally you were just beating yourself down, like, because you're with yourself 24/7, right? So like if in 2 hours, like people are singing your praises, you're doing well, and then the rest of the 22 hours you're beating yourself down, mathematically that'll add up, that'll build up, and then eventually, like, I found that, like, especially me when I was going through even my early artist years, like, the praises just began to, like, but the critiques really added to that voice. So it really fueled that voice. Anytime someone's critical, anytime someone's like, no, I liked it, I loved it, I'm like, in my mind, like, you're saying that because you're my friend. You're saying that because you are related to me. You're saying that because you're my buddy. You're saying, like, I had an excuse as to why the praises were there, and then the critiques, I was just like, they're like amplified. Right? And like, of course they're saying this because this, and like, and it would always fuel it. And I had to learn to be like, like, critique is great, like, but negative stuff, like, whatever is awful. And just start to take the praise and start to like accept that, like, hey, you are good. Hey, you are an artist. Hey, you belong in this space. Hey, you're capable. Like, but it sounds, like I said, like you said it, like, it's cheesy, or like, to say that, like, the positive talk really changes it. But that it does, it has a huge impact, right?
Actually, this is one of the things that I like, especially having a platform like this, that I do want to share. Is I feel a lot of people think that's the creative route is a very challenging choice of life, but actually it's simpler than people make it out to be. I don't know, like maybe it's from societal like societal what
Pressures?
no societal's perspective of what art creative arts might be, but the reason why I say that is because creative route is just as difficult as any choice of life in anything that you pursue. It's just as hard. It's just as hard. And it's not like artist life is extra harder than any other route. And I say that because 80, like, I'm just using numbers as a way to describe it, but I would say like 80% of the work is in that work that we just talked about. 80% of the work is you developing your sense of self-love, self-discipline, self-respect, self-worth, a sense of gratitude for a huge part of that is the sense of gratitude. And when these work is done, so it's basically the self-work, right? I would say that's the 80% of the work. Once that is there, the rest of the 20% is the consistency that you put in, how you sharpen your fundamentals, and how you connect with the networking. And a lot of the very practical things that we would think of, like, oh, these are the things that are really artists. These things follow when the 80% of the work is done. So I feel a lot of people think that, oh, this work is so hard. I feel it's a lot easier, a lot more manageable when you have that the 80% of the work done. I wouldn't say there's ever so done, we're always,
and we also don't want to say that if you succeed in the 80%, paychecks are gonna flow, because that's still a difficult one for the arts. But no, I agree with you, and I'm it's fascinating, because if you are not in a good headspace, then it makes sense that you're not thinking creatively, right? Especially if you're continually thinking of other things, beating yourself down. How can you possibly sit there, be zen, and create, when that very thing of being zen is just you beating yourself down, rather than thinking there's a beautiful mural here. I don't know if Harvey will be kind enough to cut over to, done by our beautiful boy here. To me, I'm trying to imagine even for this mural itself, how can I sit there and care about fine details if everything in my head is just you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, you're not any of those 5 things, right? And I feel I've always said, I say this a lot for film sets because we work on them, is if the crew and everyone on the film set is devastated, unhappy, in a terrible state, it will reflect in the art,
100%.
right? I wanted to, because you have mentioned it, and I would be an awful host if I didn't bring it up. You mentioned the Guardians project that you're doing with Chinatown. So for the folks who don't know, our friend here has been tasked with doing, I'm going to say 4 Guardians of Chinatown. He has completed the White Dragon, the White Tiger, and the Azure Dragon, I should say. What is your next one? And can you tell me how that kind of project came to be?
So the next animal is going to be the black tortoise of the north. So 2025 will be black tortoise, and then 2026 will be the vermilion bird of the south. and this project, the inspiration came from so in Korea we had a dynasty called Goguryeo, which was present day where North Korea is. It was one of the three dynasties when we had three kingdoms: Silla, Baekje, and Goguryeo. And
good luck, subscribers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget what years they are, but three dynasties, right? And the Goguryeo was the one that had the tombs. And one of our kings had a tomb where in the resting chamber there were 4 murals that were painted.
Oh.
And they were the 4 guardians. The azure dragon looking to the east, the white tiger looking to the west, the black tortoise looking to the north, and then the bird looking to the south. So I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. These things from my ancestors. So I looked into it, and it's actually shared along like China, Vietnam, Japan as well. Like Kyoto Prefecture has these 4 guardians that are protecting that city. And I was like, if they're protecting, why not I made that connection between Chinatown and this ancestral lore, right? So I was like, okay, let's bring that over to this context. It fits so well, and the way I wanted to do things was like, having 4 landmarks in one single neighborhood. It's never been done before. Yeah, it's never been done before. And so I was like, okay, that's perfect. I want people to, like, it's almost like little landmarks, like beacons that you can walk around. It sparks tourism. But with each one too, like with Chinatown, the thing is, there's a lot of things that people don't understand about Chinatown that I wanted to sort of untangle those things. And also let people know that Chinatown is a lot more than just Chinese architecture or having Chinese cultural events. There's a lot more to it. There's a Vietnamese community, there's an East African community, there's indigenous communities, there's Ukrainian communities, and people forget about these things. And I wanted to kind of deepen that connection between the general Edmontonian public and what Chinatown really is for what it is. And there's also things like, in the past, cultural erasure has been a huge thing. And very repeatedly, from the 80s when Canada Place was built, to building the LRT right across it, rebranding it as the quarters from South Chinatown. These are things that in multiple occasions that is happening. So that's why, cultural erasure was one thing, and there's a lot of displacement, a lot of acts of exclusion, and I saw hypocrisy in that. Like, just straight up, it's just hypocrisy. And when we, as immigrant communities that moved into Chinatown to find a better living and like find a place of belonging, and we faced that exclusion ourselves, from the Exclusion Act to the head tax, and then we perpetuate that to other communities, like, that's very, very hypocritical. And that's where I wanted to embed those messages in a fun way, where it's like, oh wow, there's like 4 different locations, and there's a lore that ties them all together, and then coupled with an unveiling, and it's a multimedia project. So each mural has a short film, a poem that's stylized in calligraphy, and this year we're pushing for music to be one of those elements as well. So we're looking to hire a composer, working with also a Chinese traditional ensemble, to produce a soundtrack for that mural.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's the next. I used to watch it real quick.
Oh yeah, no worries. We'll just take a quick little break here.